Hey, Larken Rose here, and I'm going to jump right into this one. I want you to closely watch your initial, immediate, just gut-level reaction to this. So here's the story. Somebody posting this on Facebook. Doesn't matter who. You don't get any other context. See how this hits you. See how this registers. See what this sounds like to you. Quote, Trump says he plans on signing an executive order making all sexual-based crimes against children a federal offense carrying a mandatory death sentence. End quote. That's the whole thing. What is your immediate reaction? I know a lot of people, including the person who posted this, yay, that's awesome. And I know at least some people can still think in principles enough to go, what? And it's not because we're in favor of sex crimes against children. It's because we understand how governments and power-happy psychos work. It's a little bit embarrassing I have to explain this to anybody, but apparently I do, because even among the pro-freedom crowd, there are people cheering for this, and they don't even understand why I'm opposed to it when I say, why are you cheering for that? What? And there's a brief back and forth with somebody here. So you're against, you're in favor of sex crimes against children? You're against stopping that? No. Are you that dumb? Are you that easy to manipulate and just be led around by your feelings that you can't think for 2 seconds? You can't have your intellectual brain kick in and think, for example, when did the president acquire the power to all by himself, with the stroke of a pen, make a new law? When did the federal government acquire jurisdiction over crimes like this that are absolutely not a federal matter and never were? They're state matter. When did he get to decide by himself the crime and the punishment? This is, now, I'm going to throw this in now. I waited till now. I'm pretty sure this story is just bullshit and made up. And there's a lot of that going around of Trump is passing an executive order to make there be more bunnies and rainbows and 3 Christmases a year. And people are just repeating crap they hear all over the place. Pretty sure this is all the way made up bullshit. But that's beside the point. And there are similar ones, like there is a story going around that Trump signed an executive order banning biological men from playing in women's sports. People going, yay! I'm going, when did that become a federal matter? When did the president acquire the power to do any such thing? Now, if you're an emotional idiot, you might go, so you think it's okay for... No. Pause and think of the principles. There's a reason for principles. Because, for example, if you go rah, rah, rah at the idea of a president unilaterally fabricating out of thin air a new law and a new crime, and it's punishable by death if you disagree, if you rah, rah, rah for that, and tomorrow he uses that power for a law you're not okay with, on what grounds do you have the right to complain? You already accepted the principle that if you like it, it's okay to have arbitrary, unlimited, centralized, authoritarian, dictatorial powers in the hands of one narcissistic twit. And you're okay with that because what he said he was going to use that power for, or what some random rumor made up by other people said he was going to use it for, is to stop something really, really bad. And if you can't detach your emotions from your brain enough to go, wait a minute, what does that imply about the kind of power he would have to do anything about anything unilaterally and literally kill anybody who disobeys? And so few people know how to think in terms of principles that a bunch of pro-freedom people are going rah, 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 whether for completely made up executive orders or ones that have something to them. Now, you know the one about he passed an executive order, no more biological men in women's sports. And that's how the news reported it. And lots of people are going, rah, rah, rah. And I said, when did the federal government acquire jurisdiction over that at all? When did the president acquire the power to just issue a decree like that and enforce it? And he didn't. That executive order had to do with federal funding. We're not going to give federal funding to organizations and events that do things we don't like, which, by the way, is also unconstitutional. It's trying to control things outside of constitutional authority by way of paying people or not paying people, which Supreme Court ruled 1 billion years ago, U.S. versus Butler. You're not really supposed to do that either. If the feds can't ban something outright, if they don't have jurisdiction over something, then they also don't really have the power to say, well, if you do the thing we like, we'll give you money. And if you don't, we won't give you money. Because that's still you trying to gain arbitrary federal power over things that aren't supposed to be under federal jurisdiction under the Constitution. Now, as you know, I don't give a crap about the Constitution. All of the power it created was bogus anyway. But for the people who pretend to believe in the Constitution, do you not even notice when he's going, well, by executive order, we're just going to overstep bounds and throw all the limits out the window. But it's for a good reason. Don't worry. Cheer for it, because it's to protect the children. So rah, rah, rah. And the fact that anybody still falls for this, especially anybody imagining themselves to be pro-freedom. Oh, don't worry. When he says he wants completely unlimited, centralized, dictatorial powers, that he can just violently control something through the stroke of a pen, no legislation, no due process, no checks and balances, no input from any of the other branches, none of that. Just this guy made a new crime and kills anybody who disobeys. Don't worry, I'm sure people in power, not even just this guy, but every other president who will ever be there, and anybody else who's ever going to be in power, don't worry, I'm sure they would never use such power for bad things, right? How gullible and stupid are people? Even people who claim to be pro-freedom. I mean, you know that every single, historical tyrant rose to power complaining about actual bad things. I mean, sometimes they were all the way real bad things. Sometimes they were exaggerated. Sometimes they had to false flag and make up their own bad things to rail against. But it was always, give us power so we can fight against this bad thing. And people go, rah, 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 and they cheer the new guy into power. Because none of them could think in terms of principles. Wait, if we're giving him this unlimited power, yeah, right now he's talking about using it to stop that really, really bad thing that everybody's against. But maybe, if he had such power, he would use it for some not so great things. Or the person who comes after, or the person who comes after that, would use it for some not so great things. And so, of course, Republicans and conservatives and pro-freedom people have tantrums when they hear of executive orders being used by the political left to do things. They also don't seem to understand the limits of what executive orders can and can't do. They can't just magically do anything. But when it's something they believe in, so many people still just throw the principles out the window. Well, if, complete authoritarian centralized power is used to stop this bad thing, then good. Yay, that's perfect. Excellent. Let's all cheer for it. Because it's to save the children. Are you that gullible? Are you that dumb? So I'm just going to say, if your initial reaction to the first thing I read was, yay, that's awesome, man, you have to pause your feelings long enough to get a brain. Try to jumpstart your brain enough to realize why that thing that sounds like it's really good because it's about stopping the most heinous crimes you can think of, there's still a reason to go, wait, what? What power? He's doing what? He claims the authority to do what? And if your brain didn't automatically do that, then you're too gullible, and you're too ignorant, and you're too emotion-driven, and you are exactly why they play these games. The left does it, the right does it, everybody does it. To tug at your heartstrings and go, well, if authoritarian power is going to stop the bad guys, and all of the things about, well, he's looking into the the human trafficking and the sex trafficking and the blah, 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 blah. And I see hardly anybody. I mean, there are a few, because there are some people with principles, saying, when was this a federal issue? And you can go, well, that's just nitpicking. Federal, state, who cares? Somebody has to stop these horrible, bad people. Well, by analogy, because it is this ridiculous, imagine if the Chinese government said, we really need to use authoritarian power to stop sex trafficking in the U.S. So we're going to send a bunch of heavily armed, like Chinese soldiers into the U.S. to stop this really bad thing. I bet then you would recognize the principle involved and go, wait, what? No, you don't get to come here and do that. What, is that because you're for children being victimized? No, it's because you have enough of a brain to go, no, that is the excuse for them trying to gain power. That's exactly what the federal government is doing. They have no jurisdiction over this. They have no power. And in that case, that one's just made up, I think. I think that story's just made up. But Trump is absolutely trying to do that with a number of executive orders, which of course he misrepresents to make himself look better. He talks about this executive order will ban this. No, it won't. It'll say you don't get federal funding if you don't jump through certain hoops or not do this or whatever, because he has no power to do that. But getting people into the mindset of accepting that the guy on the throne has the power by unilateral dictatorial decree to make good things happen and punish the evildoers. As soon as you're in that mindset, you're just a useful idiot for the worst people in the world. Because you empowered it. And when it gets used against you and you're like, wait, this isn't what I wanted, too late. You already gave up the principle. You already accepted the premise that the guy on the throne should be able to do any damn thing he wants all by himself. And it's amazing how many pro-freedom people I see falling for this stuff and going rah, rah, rah. I'm going to read the back and forth. I don't know who this person is. I don't think I've ever seen them before. So that was the post. Again, the entire post was, Trump says he plans on signing an executive order making all sexual-based crimes against children a federal offense, just by magic, carrying a mandatory death sentence, just by magic. No legislation, no constitutional authority. So, I commented under this, people who don't understand principles keep cheering for centralized authoritarianism disguised as righteousness. Where in the Constitution is this a federal matter at all? And when did the executive branch acquire the power to unilaterally create new legislation? I have no idea if this story is true, since there's a huge amount of Trump-worshipping garbage being made up. But saving the children is a great excuse for unlimited centralized dictatorial powers. So this guy, I'm not going to mention his name, that's irrelevant. Why in the world would you be arguing against protecting children from sexual abuse? Stop being that easy to manipulate and deceive. So my response is, I'm not. Read what I actually wrote. And if you think I am, you're exactly why they do bullshit stunts like this, because if it sounds righteous, you will cheer for arbitrary, centralized, unlimited authoritarian power for the federal government without even noticing. And so it said, later on, you, quote, hey, how did the president acquire the power to just make up whatever he wants all by himself and force it on everyone without legislation, constitutional authorization, or any due process? Me, quote, because when he did it to supposedly fight heinous crimes, you cheered for it. That was just me saying, in the future, you're going to be, hey, where did they get this power? You gave it to them. You cheered for it. And then he responds, I reread it. This is his comment. Quote, federal blah blah disguised blah blah executive blah blah, I don't care. Do you realize how huge of a problem sexual abuse and trafficking of children is? We should do everything we can to protect them. That's what people do if they don't understand principles and don't know how to think and are being led around by their feelings. So I responded to that, wow, actual principles just show up as blah 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 to you. You're that easy to deceive and manipulate. You do realize, I hope, that every tyrant in history insisted that he needed unlimited centralized authoritarian power in order to stop bad things, right? And you do realize, I hope, that none of them limited such power to stopping bad things. You do know this, right? And then he said, Oh, wait, did his comment disappear? He said, I don't care what you have to say. But that comment, I don't see it. I don't know if it's just not showing at the moment or if he deleted it. And I said, because you don't care about principles or logic or what is true or right, your feelings can be used to make you cheer for dictatorial power without even noticing and without even caring. You're not protecting children, you're enslaving them. There's a difference. And then to be snarky, I posted a picture, you've probably seen it, of a bunch of cheering people. It's like some girls club cheering and waving swastika flags. And I say, quote, well, he says he's against bad things, so what could possibly go wrong if we let him have unlimited dictatorial power? It's sad to watch people fall for this. Like, how many times do you need to be stomped on before you start figuring out government is not your friend? Republicans are not your friend. Democrats are not your friend. Trump is not your friend. Trump is not seeking out power in order to stop really bad guys. He's seeking out power in order to have power over you and lots of other people. And the fact that people are still falling for this and are that bad at thinking in principles that a bunch of people immediately would cheer for that. Again, the example is almost certainly just made up. But go, rah, 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 yeah, unlimited power to do that, that's great. No, it's not, because that's still unlimited power. So, I hope a lot of people who aren't new to my channel immediately went, what? He has no power to do that. Never mind the particular subject and those heinous crimes. Yeah, that's really bad. I hope people who do those crimes get shot in the head and die. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go rah, rah, rah to literally have a dictator. People are literally cheering for what is the definition of a dictator. A guy who can make up a law and a punishment all by himself. This is people cheering for an absolute dictatorship and not even noticing. Please stop cheering for dictatorships without even noticing. Is that really too much to ask?